Hello, everybody. I hope you're having an amazing day. I was at a Christmas party yesterday, which is why my voice is going to be a little bit more unique this morning or this afternoon if you're listening in some other part of the world. However, I'm very excited because I'm having a exceptional guest this morning, who's a chief design officer at Designit, a leading design agency out of the Nordics. Niklas Mortensen, we had a chance to connect and meet in Berlin, where we were both speakers at the conference called Brand Festival, and Niklas smashed it. He had an exceptional speech there. The audience loved it, and then we had a chance to chat, to connect, and I'm excited to pick his brain and to learn more about the strategic design. What are the tendencies out there? How can a business professional use strategic design thinking in their day to day so they can grow their business, all those kind of topics. So if you are joining us live right now, first of all, let us know where you're joining us from in the comments. But then if you have any questions and comments, make sure to post them and we'll try to cover some of them as well. Nicholas, how are you doing? How's your morning been?
Great, Stoyan. I'm delighted to be here. And thanks for hosting me on this cold December morning on Friday the 13th, no less. So let's cross our fingers that this goes well.
Well, I guess that depends on where in the world you're based. But since you're next
Yeah,
to Oslo,
this is true. This
that's
is true.
what's the temperature like?
I woke up this morning. I think it was 4 centigrade below. So had a nice chilly morning walk in the snow with my dog, which is nice.
Okay,
Good way to start the day.
you're good to go.
Good to go.
Talking about beginnings, would you share with our audience how did you decide to grow a career in design in the first place?
Ah, well, it probably started out with me being a proper dyslexic, so it was very clear I wasn't going to be an academic from the get-go. But I think that also was instrumental in kind of driving a sense of curiosity, and that led me also into exploring design from quite an early age. I also have photographers and artists in my family as well, so it felt like a natural path for me to go down. Absolutely.
Okay, so just to highlight the maybe the major milestones on your career journey up until the moment you you became a chief design officer at Designit. Can you give us this overview?
Yeah, it's a great question. Not because I love talking about my career, but it's probably one of the questions I get asked the most from aspiring designers on LinkedIn or within Designit. People kind of want to know what's the path, what was the plan to get here, and honestly, my answer is usually a bit disappointing to them because there was never a plan. There was no grand master plan to end up here. But from the get-go, starting at Design College, Ravensbourne in London, where I was studying with an amazing group of people who today are working in everything from Apple and Philips to BBCI. The list goes on. It's just been about kind of surrounding myself with inspiring people and saying yes to opportunities as they arise. So very shortly, went to college in London, came back to Norway with my then girlfriend, now wife, realizing that I had a bachelor in interaction design, but no one knew what the hell interaction design was. So I set up my own company, which is a learning in and of itself. You don't learn business at Design College, which they should. That's another conversation. Did that for about 6-7 years, and then moved on to work at a small IT consultancy with a leader who had no background in IT. He was actually a boat builder that ended up starting an IT company. And that kind of divergent way of thinking, when you get people from different backgrounds into a company, was just mind-blowing to me. We ended up doing lots of interesting projects that really pushed the boundaries within the sectors we worked. And after that, had a short stint in-house at a bank, building a bank digitally. Realized that that was a bit too slow-paced for me. So then I moved on to Designit, which was really love at first sight. I never ever worked at a place with such a high talent density, and kind of became a bit of a Swiss Army knife of sorts. I never really kind of completely stuck to whatever my role description was saying. And one thing led to another. I've had like 5 different roles in Designit, and last year I was tapped on the shoulder to take on this role as Chief Design Officer for Designit.
I have to admit, when I was studying in the business school and I did finance, my perception about design was probably like many other professionals, was graphic design. When I hear the word design back then, it was all right, yeah, people making graphics and maybe motion graphics, whatever. But that was design in my mind. And then I left the business school. I started working in the creative industry and probably started hanging out with people from Designit, because at the time I was living in Aarhus, the home of Designit, right? And I was like, oh my god, design is not just graphic design. It's and I mean, I wonder if we look into today, are many people still confusing design with only putting it in the graphic design, or is the perception in the business world already a little bit more broad?
It depends on the maturity of the organization, I would say, but you're completely right. A prevalent misconception of design is merely about aesthetics, rather than a fundamental component of strategy, which it really should be. So in reality, I mean, design thinking should be integrated from the outset to inform product development, customer experience, and even organizational processes. And I think this is where a lot of companies miss out. I mean, there's no doubt that this is also the design industry's fault in a way. We've been very focused on our own kind of internal boundaries, kind of what's the difference between a UX designer and a service designer and a business designer, while we haven't been that good at maybe showing the rest of the world what design can do beyond the aesthetics. And I think you're completely right. The majority of businesses today still think design is important, but more about aesthetics and functionality and user needs, more than an integral part of business strategy.
And maybe the best way to showcase what design is all about, maybe you can share a few examples from your professional journey, maybe design it, maybe from before, but like some examples of a maybe a customer cases where you implemented design to solve a business problem, so the audience, those people who are not in the industry, they can get a sense about how you can utilize design.
Yeah. The last project I was kind of hands-on in Designit was for a bank who had launched a few years before this investment platform to help people invest in funds and help grow their pensions, etc. Their whole mantra was kind of building wealth for the future and for everyone. But it was going really slow, and it was a cumbersome product. It was an app that they had. The advertising was amazing. The product, not so much. We worked quite closely with their internal designers, their different stakeholders, with their customers, especially as well, to understand kind of what was the kind of from end to end, from internal to external, from employees to customers, how should this be put together? Long story short, year after launch, it had a 211% year-on-year increase in sales of funds. And the first 8 months after the relaunch, they sold more funds and set up more kind of savings programs for the customers than they had the 4 years combined prior. So that's just like, that's a very kind of clear kind of business value of why design and working design driven internally as well is so important. One of the more one of the more kind of famous cases that Designit has done out of the Nordics is for the Oslo University Hospital, which is not about business in that sense, but it's about impact, where our designers went in and reduced the waiting time for breast cancer patients from when they suspect they have breast cancer to when they get the diagnosis with 90%. It went from 3 months to between 4 and 7 days, which is 3 months where you go around kind of almost feeling the cancer grow inside you, to a mere kind of 4 to 7 days. So that kind of profound impact that's not about aesthetics. That's not about the way an animation works or how you flow through an app. That is affecting people's lives, and I think that is the power of design.
And I wonder if, because back in the time, I had the pleasure actually to collaborate on a number of projects with Designit and to visit you guys, the headquarters. It was like a Santa Claus, workshop, like a lot of creatives, everybody's doing stuff. It was awesome. And I remember there was some clear kind of processes, but I wonder if you guys still have these type of there's a new client coming in, and then what's the step-by-step process into addressing and approaching a project that you can maybe share, like kind of a general overview. How do you apply this strategic design thinking into solving a more complex business case?
Yeah, and that really depends obviously on the client and the project. I think designers have for a long time, it was about kind of the double diamond, the triple diamond, the 5-step strategic design process, which are all good anchors, and have been very good tools to kind of drive our methodology. But it's very different working for large corporate with tens of thousands of employees, or a local kind of shop on the corner. And I think that is where we need to quickly adapt our process to their problem and their way of working rather than the other way around. But in general, I think it's all about understanding the problem we're trying to solve. And I think this is also where design methodology feels a bit kind of fuzzy for a lot of businesses, because we do come in and ask a lot of questions. It's almost like having that 4-year-old that for those of us who have kids have experienced that kind of phase where they ask questions all the time. But the purpose of that is to really understand the problem that we're trying to solve. So you want to increase your bottom line. Why? Who's your customers? What's your channels? What's your value proposition? Why is that your value proposition? Can you do anything differently? So really kind of digging into that and opening up and starting to co-create. And I think this is the other part, and what we're seeing in industry now is that there's there's more request for like people with industry kind of expertise, which is fine. That's a way of kind of getting security, I would say. But at the same time, I think the intellectual arbitrage that designers bring into a company, so from different sectors, trying to kind of look at ways to apply things they sold for a bank, how can that be applied in a hospital, for example? So there is the kind of understanding the problem. There is the co-creation phase, so working with the people in the company. They know their product best, but what we can bring is the outside in view, and then from there on in, really starting to hone in on what the solution should be. So that's a very kind of simple way of putting it, but I do think that kind of starting point of understanding problem and co-creating with the clients is just super important.
I'm always wondering as an outsider. So what happens? Like you win a project, let's say you shake hands, the agreement is there. How do you decide, as a chief design officer, who to bring on board for a specific project? Like maybe if you can give us a bit of a, like how do I get, who's the right creative or a business designer? Like how do I put up a team on a specific project?
Yeah, I think the great thing about Designit is we're a studio culture. So within every studio there is creative directors, there's leads, etc. There's as I said earlier, there's an amazing talent density, and I also think there is something about the diversity or divergent thinking that is important when we kind of set up project teams. So again, depending on the client, depending on the project, it's finding those kind of core skills that we know were needed to drive this forward. Could be a business designer because it's mainly about process and go to market. It could be a UX designer because it's about digital touch points, and just looking at the kind of portfolio of people and how they complement each other. Bringing in someone with a different background also as a challenger. So doing a service design project, bringing in an industrial designer to really kind of look at it from different angles. So I think that kind of being able to put together teams that complement each other, you don't want too much kind of people thinking in the very same ways. And then also bringing in challengers to really kind of poke at the solutions as they're being crafted.
Which, by the way, is such a great idea for everybody listening, even if you're not in this kind of industry. Because as entrepreneurs, business owners, leaders, like we often surround ourselves with people that are just like us, and they approve, and they're like, "Yeah, that's great, man." But the piece about bringing in challengers on a project. I think it was Warren Buffett that always invites to his annual meetings one of his adversaries, somebody that's his biggest critic, and gets them in the board meetings. And it's like, okay, tell my guys why we suck. And then
I love that. I love that. I think Hitchcock did something on the same, but I think, if I remember this correctly, he brought in like a comedian, which is interesting when you look at his movies. But when they came to kind of a creative stalemate, he would bring in someone who could really kind of get the mood up and have people think kind of think differently, which I love that.
how do you in the creative industry. But let me give a bit of context. I graduated in the business school, right? Everybody's with the suit, like dark suit, like very structured spreadsheet people, like very, like. Then I entered the creative world, in the movie multimedia kind of world, and to me at the time, the standard of structure went like crazy. Like I'm like these people are so not productive. They're just like wasting so much time. I just want to be creative. I don't have them. I'm like, guys, you got to get yourself together. So it took me a while to get adapted to this industry a little bit and to understand them. But I'm actually curious, how do you manage to find the right balance between allowing creativity to happen, but also having this very demanding and ambitious deadlines and structure? So how do you find this balance in an agency like Designit?
Yeah, that is super challenging, and I think also the design industry is being somewhat forced into a more kind of consultancy mindset as well, where we have to. But at the same time, designers thrive, I would say, best when they work within constraints. That's where they really do great work. But it is, as you say, it's a creative chaos, right? But you have to combine that with the structure, and it's really about kind of finding out kind of what's the guardrails we need to work within, and how can we drive this forward in a way that kind of makes sense, and also, which really hurts for designers from time to time, not letting kind of perfect get in the way of good enough, because we always want to deliver the absolutely best we can do. But if the budgets don't allow for it, we also have to kill some of our darlings and make sure that we're delivering the best impact we can within the constraints that we have. So I think in that, having really good kind of project managers, design leaders who maintain open communication, set clear objectives, do regular check-in sessions, have iterative feedback loops to help if there's a creative rot or if someone's kind of blocked, how do we kind of move forward? And most of all, having a supported environment where team members feel empowered to take risks, to help sustain creativity, even under tight deadlines. But as I said, I mean, part of experimenting and innovating is also knowing when good enough is better than perfect. And that is probably the hardest thing about being a designer.
Yeah, I've had a chance to work with many designers, and often they focus a lot on the design, on the details. I mean, graphic designers, for example, focus on the aesthetics of the visual and all the small details. And and I have to spend a lot of time with them to say, it is good, you're really good at what you do. However, what I'm struggling with is, a, the deadlines, and letting go, and it doesn't have to be everything, it doesn't have to be perfect. And B, the second part that you already mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, is understanding the business side of this. This is an amazing poster, or this is an amazing product, but how is that solving what we're trying to solve for?
Mm.
Like try to think about what's the objective we're trying to achieve with this, not just we need something pretty and nice, because that doesn't make sense. And you mentioned that you wish the universities probably spending a little bit more time teaching designers business. Talk to me about that kind of angle as well, like to the designers and creatives listening. Maybe what would be your advice in that perspective?
Yeah, and I hope I don't get ambushed in some dark alley after this. No, I'm kidding. No, it is. I mean, craft is incredibly important. I think you will not meet a lot of other professions where people are really passionate about their work. I know some amazing accountants, but they are not passionate about their work. So I do think craft is incredibly important, but it's also about preparing designers for the real world. And this is we're lucky enough to collaborate with a few academic institutions across the world, and this is something I repeatedly say to their professors, is that we need to bring the business into design education. And it's not about learning Excel, but it's about understanding kind of, yes, we focus and we need to focus on the user needs, but the project in and of itself need to also solve a business goal. That may be soft goals, it may be improving employee satisfaction, or it could be hard goals. We need to increase our bottom line or our sales by X amount of percent. And just understanding how design kind of affects that is just super important. And it also helps designers kind of measure their impact in a way, which I also think has been is a big reason why design is currently in the state it is now, and a bit of in flux. I think Robert Fabricant, last year he had an article in Fast Company about how had business broken up with design. I think one of the reasons for that is that as a field, we have not been good enough at showcasing our value, at putting some kind of KPIs measurements towards the work we do. There's some amazing creative work out there. And we know like companies like Apple or Airbnb, their whole kind of philosophy is built around design. And they're incredibly valuable companies. But as a profession as a whole, we have not been good enough at putting numbers behind what we do. And we need to do that to be taken seriously.
Can you maybe dive deeper into that, like for the audience to understand even better, like what do you mean by Apple is a company driven by design?
I mean, Apple is probably it started to become the cliche, right? The most obvious one. It's impossible to underestimate the impact the dynamic duo of Jonathan Ive and Steve Jobs has had on design in the corporate space. And I think it's what's interesting about that is how they incorporate it into everything they do. So not only the products we use every day, which are exquisitely designed, although I know some people are not very happy about the latest Photos update, but I think the key takeaway from these kind of organizations is that they integrate across silos. They break down barriers between departments and foster alignment and efficiency. They give empowerment through tools and culture. So agile structures, innovation programs drive employee engagement and productivity, but they have the customer as a starting point. All these organizations ensure users, customers, and employees are at the core. So, and then align the internal processes to meet those needs efficiently. And that translates into great services and great products.
Absolutely, man. I mean, I can't imagine now, switching back to, I mean, my iPhone, the AirPods, the the MacBook, like it's just simple, it's easy. This minimal, you only have what you need. You don't need anything on top of it. Simplicity, and it functions. It's thought through. It's making the products and the experiences easy and simple to understand. I just want to give a shout out to the people who are joining us here live. Your old friend from school, Ole, is saying hello. Went with you to school, and he still thinks you're talented, which is great. We have Yeva, who's been with us, joining, like a listener of the podcast. She's a great person as well. She's saying hello, saying that's her favorite sessions here on LinkedIn. Thank you, Yeva. Galina is joining us for the first time live, catching one of the interviews. Thanks for being with us, guys. And if you have any questions, post them in the comments as well. Take some questions about design, about the future of the design world, or if you have any personal questions on productivity, leadership to Niklas, feel free to post in the comments. Niklas, I wasn't prepared, but I actually wanted to put you into a bit of a hypothetical situation, so just to understand how you think. All right. We talk about Christmas parties. I mean, now in the season of Christmas parties. Now, imagine I'm an executive from Lego in Denmark, and I'm trying to set up a Christmas party for my management team and executives. And then I'm like, Niklas, our team is so busy. I need you to do the design of our Christmas party. How should I start? Like, just somebody comes to you, throws it at you, and I just wonder how you're gonna approach such a problem.
I love that. Well, it's not. I'll be honest. I don't apply kind of design methodology and the design thinking to everything I do. So I wouldn't want to overcomplicate things. But I do think Christmas parties are an interesting kind of experiential event as well. But we're talking about, or you were mentioning, this was for kind of leaders, and I do think what leaders need the most is group therapy. I mean, it's hard being a leader. It's really, especially if you're more of a servant leadership style than which I know Lego has to a large extent. It is really hard. So actually creating, I think, more than having a Christmas bash with a DJ that blows your ears out, I think it's more about creating a space where people can really kind of settle in and get that kind of runway into Christmas, which they should spend with their family and away from work, and not being about kind of getting overly drunk and hearing all the kind of complaints that people usually don't dare to tell you when they're sober, right?
Yeah, and I'm just building up on top of that. So I love that. So in terms of the venue, would you go for some kind of a more classic dinner tables, or like those kind of a more more casual kind of setup? Would you facilitate some kind of facilitated dinner with something like topics to talk about, some surprises? Like, I'm just trying to understand what would be some some thinking.
Yeah, no, I mean, me personally, I do my best thinking when I'm walking. So I would probably aim for, and we're talking about Lego, we're talking about Denmark, we're talking about the people who kind of lead by play. So I absolutely think that a combination of kind of something outdoorsy with that ends up in a cabin of sorts where there's more kind of, it's more about reflection than it is about necessarily having a big party.
I love it, man. I love it. I'm starting to get into it. If anybody from Lego is listening and want to talk to Nicholas about how to organize your Christmas party, make sure to get in touch. We have a couple of questions coming in. The first one is about the AI, but I'm going to go back to AI because we want to cover this topic as well. So, Galina, stay with us. I'm going to start with Yeva first. Yeva is sharing that. I'm going to read it. Yeva says, I was born in artist family, smiley. Design is such a vital element for communication. How do you feel? How do you feel? What is the gap that design helps to solve? Where is the role design can play on growing business?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think design is the bridge between strategy and execution, and this is where, I mean, you might have a visionary strategy, but it's through design that it becomes tangible, actionable, and impactful. Design turns ideas into experiences that customers and employees can connect with. And sometimes that is really hard to translate into business, kind of tangible business goals. Other times it's super easy. But at the end of the day, great design is great business. And the companies we talked about earlier has shown that investing in design doesn't just make products look better, it creates experiences that come on loyalty, drive growth, and set the pace for entire industries as well, which I think is fascinating. And then this is the kind of challenge that we meet, especially in large enterprises, is the empathy part of design, understanding your customers, your employees and stakeholders. Business has a tendency to be very rational. But was it George Bernard Shaw that said, you have to reject reason to innovate? And I think that is such a powerful and interesting quote. But by understanding your customers, employers, and stakeholders, you can uncover unmet needs and enable business to kind of move forward in a way that you cannot do through an Excel sheet. So I think, yeah, it's coming back to my point earlier. I think design needs to be much better to expose the value of the work we do. It's an industry that punch way beyond their weight. I mean, if you look at the size of the design industry versus the IT consultancy industry, it's huge. But this industry, the IT consultancy industry, will just deliver shit products if it wasn't for the design industry. So I think we have a lot to work to do, and I think we need more kind of designers driving the business agenda as well.
And thank you so much, Eva, for the question. Everybody else asking questions, because that's how we can design an experience, podcast experience that is relevant to you guys. I'm gonna take another question. I hope I can read Amelie's name. Can you help me here, Niklas, reading her name? It's probably gonna be easier for you, right?
Let's see. I was the. Where are you now? There we are. Amalia.
Yeah, the full name. Can you read it? Because I think I'm gonna be.
Amalia Wilhelmine Gilds Ernst.
Thank you so much. Okay, so the question from her, she's saying about the balance between business and user focus. How do you navigate from one mindset to the other when you are under time pressure?
I don't really think that's two different mindsets or two opposing thoughts. I think what matters to people matters to business. So it's really, if you don't consider one, it doesn't matter for the other. So I do think those two things are intangibly linked. I do think sometimes, as I said before, you need to kill your darlings. You need to, as designers, we've all had clients come to us saying when we ask about what's the goal of the project, we want the world's best website or whatever. That's a bit of a tough ask. But if we manage to kind of break that down into some tangible goals that we can then, together with the client, prioritize, and then we look at the budget and we see, okay, well, actually, we may be able to kind of solve for half of this. So let's prioritize what's the important part here. Where can we get the most bang for the buck? Where can we apply the Pareto principle, where it's like 20% effort, 80% effect? So I think there, for me, that's not two opposing things. If you, as a business, do not take your users and user needs into account, then you're going to fail regardless.
Yeah, thank you so much, Niklas, for answering, and thanks everybody. Keeping coming the questions. Since AI is a topic that is very important to cover, I'll be happy to get there with you, Niklas. How are you guys looking at AI these days? I mean, obviously, AI has come to stay, and it's already been disrupting many industries, creative industries. I would imagine the same in the design industry. How do you guys adopt AI, utilize it, and what do you think is the future of the design industry having the AI in mind?
Yeah, this is. I think this is a big part of the perfect storm that is hitting the design industry these days. And I mean, technologies change, methodologies evolve, new tools replace old ones. But I mean, for 34 years, Designit has been a leader in human-centric design, and this will continue to be at the core of what we do. First time I attended Brand Festival in 2022 in Budapest, it was all about the metaverse, and this was November 2022. And I think like a week after I came home, Chat GPT 3.5 was released, and from there on, it just like it exploded, right? But I do see a profound kind of fork in the road for the creative industry, where design-driven strategy and consulting on one side, and the implementation and production is going very separate ways in the value chain. The latter is currently, and will even more so in the future, be impacted by AI. And what the chief marketing officer in Klarna called brutal efficiency in the Wall Street Journal the other day. So AI's transformative potential in the design industry is immense, but we're seeing now, kind of after the AI hype comes the AI kind of hangover, and it will still dominate the conversation, but we're also going to see industry, both our industry and industry in general, be a bit more kind of laid back in how it will be applied, going from kind of AI hype to kind of AI as the business driver. How can we actually use this in a way that makes sense and doesn't kind of go against ethics and regulatory pressure that is also mounting quite substantially, especially within the EU. So I do think from a kind of industry perspective, human-centered AI will be at the top of the agenda for any CEO or CTO making investments in emerging technology in 2025, even if it's reluctantly, as regulations and public opinion kind of drag them kicking and streaming into the future. For the design industry, it's also a huge opportunity. I mean, one thing is the kind of hyper-personalization of experiences that will enable designers to create deeply kind of tailored experiences for users by leveraging real-time data and predictive analytics. But it's also proven to be great in terms of augmenting creativity. So we have this concept in Designit called and AI. So it's really about AI acting as a collaborator, not just a tool. So enhancing creativity by detecting patterns, synthesizing input, etc., and really being it's like having a thousand really kind of creative interns, I would say, to help you kind of create diverse inputs. And then obviously we talked about Sora as well. Tools like Sora, DALL-E, ChatGPT are already helping designers generate concept, iterate faster, and experimenting with ideas they might not have considered. So there's a lot of stuff happening in this space affecting the design industry, and we're grappling with this at the moment. Designit is part of a large IT company called Wipro, so we have access to some amazing AI professionals there as well. I mean, they've been working with AI for 10 years. So we're really kind of trying to find ways to work with them and look at how we can apply this in a intentional and ethically sound way as well. Because let's face it, there's a lot of kind of negative ripple effects that can come of this as well, especially when we work with it towards the market.
Right. I think you partly covered the question of Galina as well. She just wrote in the comments that she needs to leave to prepare for appointment, but her question was, what are AI tools around innovation design you already use and recommend? Maybe
Yeah.
you can also share it, personally, not just design in general, but like you personally, what are some tools that you're using on your day-to-day, maybe to with this with AI?
Yeah, I'm going to be a bit. It's a bit disappointing for myself as well. I don't work as much hands-on as I used to, obviously, as I work across a lot of studios. But I mean, personally, I'm almost an addict to ChatGPT, and especially the latest model. I mean, it is profound how it's kind of really assisting my thought process. And as I said earlier, I'm a hopeless dyslexic. So being able to, in the car towards work, being able to have a conversation with ChatGPT, just like spitballing ideas back and forth, it's just an amazing way to kind of get your thought process going. But it does require a bit of tuning in terms of just like telling the model as well to be critical and challenge you. So it's also a really great way to prepare for sales meetings, I have to say, pitch meetings, where you kind of get it to ask you really critical questions. So yeah, that's a bit of a pro tip. I know our designers are working with all the different tools, testing out DALL-E, using. I mean, Figma has some amazing integrations coming now as well, with towards Webflow, for example. So there's this is kind of continuously developing. I do think that's what we're trying to work out now is really how do we kind of streamline this so it actually becomes that AI collaborator. So it's not just about playing around. So there is, it's, and I think in every studio they're experimenting with the different stuff as well.
And that's a very good point, man. Because now you have as you said, you're in the car, you're maybe getting some feedback on your sales pitch, but how do you integrate it so it becomes like a whole process with different tools and maybe that's where the industry is going to go. The whole AI is going to come a little bit more integrated and so you have the whole thing from A to Z. Right now is a little bit, there's many tools. I mean, ChatGPT, even for this podcast, I came up with some ideas, but then I prompted to ChatGPT, like, Niklas is doing this thing, and he's coming to the podcast. The topics I want to cover are this and this and this. Give me 30 questions, and then from these 30 questions, I selected like 15, and then I adapted them a little bit, and run them again through ChatGPT, and then I sent the questions to you yesterday. And then you added some more, and I was like, probably he also used Chat. So we have this little game, right?
Busted. Yeah. No, it was, and again, this was in the car last night. I had a conversation with the ChatGPT and asked him to. I thought your questions was softballing a bit, so I asked it to come up with a bit more kind of critical questions, and I think that's good. It's a good way of kind of driving the thought process and introducing divergent thinking. I think in the creative, process. It also needs to. It's great, and I'm a techno optimist. I'm really a nerd at heart, but it's also we really have to also retain our own critical thinking as well, because if the future of creativity is AI, we're going to end up with a lot of sameness. We're going to end up with because AI and algorithms will always try to find the kind of the optimal solution, but that also then will result in kind of outputs being very, very much the same, because they all want to kind of optimize. So I think that there's still a lot of room for human creativity in creative processes to really make the outputs and outcomes unique.
Oh, for sure, man. And I'm actually wanna cover some of the questions that we are just discussing, because I think they're really interesting. And think since you mentioned the word human, there was one of the questions. The term human-centered design is everywhere these days. Do you think it's in danger of becoming a cliche, or is it still a meaningful approach?
Yeah, that is a really good question. I think, as I said earlier, design is at this inflection point where we kind of shot ourselves in the foot in many ways. But human-centered design done right is really, really powerful. But it risks becoming hollow when used as a checkbox rather than a mindset. So too often businesses adopt the language of human-centered design without embracing its depth. So treating it as a toolkit rather than a way of deeply engaging with human needs and behaviors. So the key to keeping it meaningful, and this is also a cliche in and of itself, is authenticity. It's more than kind of workshops and post-its. It's about listening, empathizing, and challenging assumptions. And if we're not delivering outcomes that improve lives, then we're missing the point. And that sounds a bit kind of presumptuous, but I mean, we're currently working with a large international company on their internal service desk, which sounds really boring. That's not why you go to design school, right? But done right, keep it kind of bringing in all the right stakeholders, you're potentially improving the day-to-day work of 80,000 employees in this company. And it may not change the world, but it actually does mean something for those 80,000 people, that their service desk is designed around them as an employee instead of them having to adapt to the service desks and that way of working.
Oh, it's a good example, man. And it might actually change the world. Like, if you think about it, like all these people affected with something seemingly small, but then based on that, their output is probably going to change, and based on that, like the butterfly effect in a way. And there's a skill in that as well. You've spoken about the do no harm framework. Do you think most businesses are ready to embrace a model that prioritizes ethics over profits, or will the market force them to cut corners?
Well, I mean, the political environment right now is certainly not in favor of ethics over profit. But I do think regulatory pressure and consumer pressure will push this agenda moving forward. Many businesses still view ethics as a nice to have rather than a necessity. And the reality, as we all know, and this makes perfect sense, is that prioritizing ethics isn't just the right thing to do, it is a business imperative. Customers, employees, and governments are increasingly holding organizations accountable, and brands that cut corners lose trust, which is almost impossible to regain. So the do no harm framework that my excellent colleagues, Dr. Pardesh Shafafi and Julia Bazzoli, created is about really helping businesses anticipate, prevent, and respond to potential harm, not just reactively, but proactively. So AI, as we spoke about, is a perfect example of this. There's so many examples out there of algorithmical biases gone bad, that it's in any business interests to really stay ahead of that. And this is where design is also really powerful. And another kind of part of design that business don't really see is that design methodology is a fantastic risk mitigation tactic. By being able to kind of use design to kind of peek around the corner and look at scenarios, kind of, yes, you want to go from A to B, but as we know, kind of the future is not kind of linear. There's a lot of things that can affect it. So having kind of the potential scenarios in mind when you look ahead is super important, and to be able to kind of gauge the potential downsides of what you want to achieve as well.
That's a relevant point. And talking about risks, what's the biggest design risk you have ever taken yourself? And did it pay off, or did it crash and burn? Can you share maybe your learnings, like if you can reflect on the experience?
Yeah. I mean, design, I think to a certain extent is about taking risk. Otherwise, you end up kind of just producing the same thing as your competitors. But one of the most kind of profound learning experience for me was quite early in my career. I was working for a company doing project financing, and for those who don't know, it's these complex kind of financial constructs to finance kind of big kind of development projects or kind of ships, etc. I did what designers do. I go in, I look at what they have today, I do some stakeholder interviews, and then I go off and create a really, really nice looking design. And for someone who didn't understand what project financing was, it was a very useful tool. But fast forward a few months, I get these like 50 people in this company in a room, and these are people who like every minute they are not on the phone, they're not making money. So this was really hard to actually get them in a room as well. I presented this amazing design. It was really lots of white space, lots of kind of nice charts, etc. And it was complete quiet. And then one of the guys just gets out of his chair and just goes like, "What the hell is this? Where is my numbers?" So I completely kind of missed the point of who I was designing for. I was designing for myself and not for the people who was actually going to use it. And that was such that feeling, that sinking feeling when you totally crashed and burned, that stayed with me forever after. And this was way before Designit, by the way. So this was also one of the reasons why I was so incredibly kind of happy to join Designit, because this is really what Designit is really good at, is that whole insights kind of phase, really understanding the problem we're trying to solve and for whom we're solving it. So yeah, that stuck with me.
Yeah, sometimes the best learnings come from the biggest failures and the times that we mess up big time, because it hurts, it's painful. I want to ask you a couple more questions if you have the time. If you could challenge business leaders to change one thing about how they engage with design, what would that be?
Ooh, I challenge them to bring in design into the conversation a lot earlier. Too often, design is treated as an executional step when it should be part of shaping the strategy from the start. So when design teams are included early, they can provide the insights that inform the direction of the entire project. As I said earlier, I mean, design as a risk mitigation methodology is just super profound. So it's not only about defining or identifying opportunities, it's also about mitigating risk and then saving the company a hell of a lot of money in kind of failed initiatives. So again, design is not just about how things looks, it's about how they work. And that starts long before the first sketch or wireframe.
Excellent. I hope more of our listeners are paying attention to that. And just to find out, to kind of to wrap up the whole episode, I think if you can give us a bit of a perspective for the designers out there, the young designers, creative people listening, who are probably uncertain about the future and trying to figure out how to navigate what career path to take. Can you maybe give us a bit of a, like, what would be your advice to the aspiring designer, maybe to paint us your view about where the industry is going to be, what parts of design are going to be relevant in 4 or 5 years from now, what should they focus on so they can be competitive and they can be, have a strong case uh, in 3, 4, 5 years from now.
Yeah, no, I think it's really about what capabilities and skills do we need in the future, right? As I said earlier, I think we're at the point where there's a clear fork in the road where production and implementation is becoming more and more automated, while the consulting part, the strategy part of design is becoming more and more important. I think the interesting thing about when we were at Brand Festival, which is an interesting conference in terms that it's very broad when it comes to creativity, and there was also a lawyer on the stage talking about new regulations that come into play when that will affect us as creatives. And I think this is where designers coming into the field today need to, as we talked about earlier, to understand the environment and the playing field we have, because design is everywhere. And your kind of path forward is really kind of going to be shaped by all these external forces. So AI and brutal efficiency, regulations, understanding business. So design as a strategic practice, I think, will be more and more important moving forward. The craft side of things, still super, super important, but that's where you need to really understand and work with technologies. And that will change rapidly. And that's been a frustration throughout my whole career. You finally learned a tool, and then it's like, oh, now it's the next thing, and you have to learn a new tool. But that is the nature of what we do. So being able to work with AI, being able to work with new tools in a way that really amplifies your creativity and output, super, super important. But if you're starting out, if you're unsure about which kind of fork in the road that you're gonna go down, be open. Go through every door that opens for you. You can always turn around and walk out that door if it's not for you. But do be open to everything. Do not kind of settle into, I am this kind of designer, or I have my 5-10 year plan, I want to do this. If you have an opportunity handed to you, grasp it, try it out. If it kind of works for you, that's great. If it doesn't, then you can always kind of try something else.
I love it, man. Especially if you're in your 20s, don't overthink it too much. oh my God, what if I don't pick the perfect job? Like,
Yes.
dude, you want. Just what's the right next step? Just does it feel right? In 3 months, you're probably gonna do something else anyway. Just get over it.
Yes, yes, I completely subscribe to that. And you probably have to bleep this out, but I mean, your 20s is all about like fucking up and trying again. So take every opportunity that's handed to you and really make the best of it. Kind of lean in. That is the kind of number one thing I keep telling my kids as well. Is like, do not think you are above or better than the opportunities that are handed to you. For all you know, it will open the next door that will lead to something amazing. So yeah, I completely subscribe to that.
Thank you so much, Niklas. Thank you for joining, sharing lessons from your experience, being with us on the podcast. Final question: where could people find you? And for the businesses that are interested to potentially collaborate with you, how could they get in touch?
I have the handle Interaction Love in almost every channel there is. So do reach out. Otherwise, you'll be able to find me on designit.com as well. So I'm always happy to strike up a conversation. That is where I get my inspiration, is really talking to people and having kind of creative sparks fly. So I'm always up for a coffee chat. So do reach out.
And by the way, he's a pretty good speaker. So if you're an event producer, make sure to keep Nicholas in mind.
Thank you, Stoyan.
Thank you so much. And thanks everybody for being with us once again. 202 episodes. If you enjoyed this one, make sure to subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, you name it. We'll keep bringing you amazing people like Nicholas. Wishing you an amazing day. Don't overdrink at the Christmas parties, and or maybe you do. I mean, if that's what you want to do. And thanks again, and see you once again at the next episode of Productivity Mastery. Ciao, guys. Bye bye.
Thank you.